Yes, Zoom.
Bing, bing, bong.
Let's give him a brighamism.
A brighamism?
Yeah.
All right,
That's
we're hitting the ground running here.
Yeah. Is that
There we go. I mean, it's just kind of stream of conscious. When it comes, as they say.
Can't
So, yeah.
force the brighamisms.
But
Just so you know, brighamism is like, I swear, he has, there are people out there that set trends, and then there's Brigham, where he sets sayings for, like, people. Right?
nah, I just, I take from other people and puzzle pieces together there. So,
Tanner still says, yabo.
yabo.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
It's
yabo.
more in private, though, because I can't, like...
He can't do it justice like how you
I'm
do it
just not
justice.
confident
No, you got it, man. You just get it with some gumption there, and then,
Well,
yeah.
my two things recently have been little ooh-wops. She hates that.
No, I hate
Little
that one.
ooh-wots.
Ooh-wops.
Ooh-wops.
It's like
Ooh-wops.
thingamabob. It's like the word that you use for the
Okay.
thing that you can't think of the name of.
Ooh-up, ooh-up. Huh. Okay, yeah.
So my buddy, you met Aaron that one time.
Yeah.
That's what he says. Like, if we're ever on a phone, he's like, get the
Ooh-wop.
ooh-wop. And, like, SD cards, a lens, like, your light.
That's unreal.
The ooh-wop.
Yeah. It's funny because in the Dominican Republic,
Yeah.
they or in Spanish, just in general, there's the word for that is vaina. So you
Vaina.
say, dame una vaina, dame esa vaina. And
See,
you're like,
there
what
it
is
is.
what is that? Where,
And the
like, what are
word
you
in
talking about?
Cebuano
Yeah, and
is
you start-
Kwan.
It's what?
Kwan.
Kwan?
Yeah.
I think
Kwan.
I like hit the Kwan, like,
That's what I thought of too.
right.
But then I started
Did you
using
hit
it in
the
my
Kwan?
vocabulary.
Couldn't figure out what the thing was.
Yeah.
Wow.
And just
What is the Kwan? Do we ever know what the Kwan was? Or is
hit
it
the
just
Kwan.
kinda
I don't know. I just remember the dance move.
I just know the whoa. Is it
like, whoa.
right there?
Okay.
Oh, yeah, let me toss one up to you.
Alright, I'm ready.
Oh, you got it. You got it. Yeah. It was a touchdown right there.
Man, I'm hyped. Like, this is awesome.
Yeah, it's
This
good
is
to be
something we've
here.
been dreaming about for a long time. And depending on when we release this could be the first or the second
Yeah.
or the third. So that's up to you guys.
Perfect.
But yeah, thanks for coming. And we were just before you got here reading a transcript for your book.
Cool.
And
I don't know if we were quite reading. It's more of like an experience.
that's a really good point.
Like
Yeah.
there's reading, but then there's like the experience.
Yeah.
So
It's been a really interesting process. I don't know if I've given you guys the backstory, but
Well, I just know about maybe something I would love to get into is
Yeah.
like, not right now, but maybe in the future, like kind of the conversations that you and I have had of like, when do you break off and do what you love, and how do you have that confidence in yourself and just like kind of jump ship?
yeah.
I think
Yeah.
you're an inspiring story in that way, and something I wish our audience like would understand. And you're going to be permanent on the guest,
Yeah.
but yeah, just how did this come to be? And
Well, I mean, if first things first, I think something that's super interesting, right? If, we talked right before we started about value, how do you create value for your community and inspire and uplift other people? And something that I've like started to really notice and believe in as I've gotten older is that to chase passions, to really, follow your dreams, as cliche as it is, people value that, and it takes a leap of faith. It takes, jumping 2 feet off a cliff, not sure, not knowing if you're going to land flat on your face or, hit the ground and, just run in stride. And, I think, truly just embracing like who you believe you are at your core and what you're, ultimately good at, what no one else, could do because you're a unique individual. That's how, value is produced in a very, mutual sense for yourself as well as, for the community around you. Just because you're truly and authentically expressing your voice, you're being completely authentic with your life and your experience. And, back to the creative process of this book, it's super interesting.
maybe you should describe like what the book is.
Yeah, absolutely. So the book is called The Lonesome Crowded West.
I was gonna say we read the paragraph. I think chills would be like an understatement.
Almost every sentence he was like, whoa. Whoa.
I mean, I literally rewrote it probably 30 times. In my journal, I have like...
How long have you been writing? I'm going to pull it up. Is that all right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you read a paragraph?
Yeah. The genesis of the writing started about a year ago, almost exactly. And I just, as you know, I got to say, like, I completely borrowed the title from the band Modest Mouse. They are a punk rock band. They had an album, it was their second studio album called The Lonesome Crowded West. And it like really struck a chord with me, and like the juxtaposition of, you know, to be alone in a crowd is something that, you know, resonates deeply with me of, you know, what does loneliness really look like? And why do we feel alone? Is it, you know, limited to being by yourself, or, you know, is there a deeper, more pervasive sense of loneliness when you're around other people, but, you know, just feel like there's a disconnect? And the interesting part of this creative process is that, you know, these photos are, I'm biased because it's my own work, but beautiful. And
I don't think that's a bias at all.
I appreciate it. But the one thing that I really hope to convey is that it isn't just this highlight reel of my, you know, my favorite or my best photos, but it truly is a story taught or, you know, spoken in a visual format. And like, as soon as I kind of got boots on the ground and really started, you know, putting together the pages, I couldn't sleep. I was just, you know, working on it constantly. And like,
was it like an assignment or I've never actually talked to you about this. This is good. It's almost like when you find that good idea, it's like this itch that you can't satisfy until it's done.
Yeah.
Either it's done and it's perfect, or you throw it away.
Well, I think what's awesome is that it was both. It was like this itch, you know, it was this itch that like I had all of these raw materials. I knew in my mind how I wanted it to look. And as soon as I started working on it, it was like, all right, well, I got to tweak this, I got to tweak that. And as well as just like being so excited to see it like tangibly take form.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, so, you know, if like to be passionate and to like work hard at something that you love is, you know, that's where you really hear the phrase of like, once you find what you love, you never work another day in your life. And, you know, it's ultimately like what we're all working towards, right? Fulfillment, value.
I really want to go into, because the whole point of this podcast is how are we, the three of us, and any guests that we have on, adding value to those people that we're trying to share this message to. And I really want to, something that I've struggled with a lot, that you have struggled with a lot, well, everybody at this table, and I'm guessing it's definitely more of a, like anybody in their 20s right now, and even earlier, like I think 30 is the cap, and I think it goes back, struggles with the idea of, we're going to lose a lot of people, or we're going to gain a lot of people, but what do I do if I hate the way my parents did it, right? For those who don't know, I don't have a college education. I'm going to say this out loud, I'm probably going to get me really in trouble, but I don't plan on getting one. It's just not for me. That being said, it's for some people, and I understand that. Like for Olivia, it's perfect for you. Sorry, I didn't take a breath. But someone in your position who is now, did what I like to call the 40-40.
Yeah.
Smoke for 40, work for 40, and then die for however else more than you have left. But you kind of did both for a really long time. Well, you definitely did the first for a really long time, and now it's like, all right, jump ship, like you said. So I'd be curious from your perspective, what do you know about Brigham? Because we know each other very well, like all three of us, but maybe not from his point of view. I know his point of view. So I'm wondering, from someone that in nursing, you have to go to school. Like, there's no option. Mm-hmm. Someone like me, like I went to school for a long time, and I was like,
I wouldn't say for a long time.
Well, I went for enough to know that
It wasn't for you.
The film, I didn't learn anything, and I went to like the highest class, film school, and so it just wasn't for me, and that's fair, right? So I wonder, from your position, to kind of transition to that idea, how would you navigate that, especially as we think about children. But as you think about it, right? What do you tell people that maybe aren't enjoying or are looking for what they want to do?
I think there's 3 things you need to think about as you're preparing to pursue a career or a lifestyle, and that's what your passion is, what your experience is in, and then what your education is in. And education doesn't have to be defined by, a 4-year school. Mm-hmm. I feel like I learned maybe 80% of what I've learned in nursing school by working in a skilled nursing facility.
Sure.
I had no credential to be there. It was during COVID. They were desperate. I had enough time to do a 6 to 8 week CNA course. They were like, we'll hire you and train you on the job. So I got hired and trained on the job with no education training, whatever, on doing that task. And I learned so much more than I think I would have in that 6 to 8 week course where you are taught by an instructor and then do things on a mannequin and blah, blah, blah. I learned probably 80% of what I've learned in the last 2 semesters of nursing school observing and doing in the skilled nursing facility. Because I wasn't just doing tasks. I was watching how the nurses interact with patients. I was watching how the nurses handle doctor's orders. I was watching, all of that interaction. And I wasn't doing it, but I was watching. And so most of what I learned in nursing school to now has been reinstilling that or refreshing, I guess.
Well, and I think, we've talked about this a little bit, just in terms of, different nursing programs within Utah. Like there's a stigma if you go to one program that, you're really book smart, that
right.
you know your stuff, but then when you're actually at, a patient's bedside, maybe the soft skills start to lack. Mm-hmm. And, I think it's an awesome point. I didn't realize that, that's how you, got started, where you, without much experience, and then to just go through this, essentially a rotation, right? Would that be another, and to kind of just, like have the floodgates open, and you have to learn in the moment. And like, I think, back to your original point in terms of, kind of breaking the mold of like our parents' generation. It's something that I think about in quite a bit, just because, naturally you do what you know. And, it's the easy, like, well, it might sound a little paradoxical, like the path of least resistance is, you say, okay, this is what my parents did. I can right. like, that's kind of how my life is laid out for me. And whether, you're in the realm of, like, formal education, I think there's the real like push or importance to find your own personal voice, in your mid-20s, and say, like, maybe I'm completely happy following in the footsteps of, the path laid before me. I know for my case, I'm extremely grateful, and I, love my parents to death, good to their core. Now you're good. And, but ultimately, like, like, what do I want to make my life to be? Mm-hmm. And there you can kind of just continue to progress generationally, by, following that voice and saying, like, this might go against the grain with what I know, but I'm going to hedge my bets and just kind of roll with it. And there's a lot of tough conversations. There's a lot of, headache and but ultimately, like, fulfillment and happiness comes from that authentic expression of self. And sometimes it does require formal education in where it's absolutely needed, but ultimately, like, you are in control of your own path.
I recently just got done with the memoir by Will Smith that was released like a few weeks ago. Incredible. Like, it was probably, I'm not a really big avid reader, but it was a book that, and full disclosure, I listened to it, but even books, I kind of lose my interest, I guess, and that might just be an occupational hazard, because I'm very visual. However, it was incredible, and I finished it about a week ago, and I'm still I have postpartum
Postpartum?
Yeah, I said it.
Postpartum.
I read for it, but I digress. In the book, he kind of towards the beginning, he talks about kind of this transition from going to college, or wanting to go to college, and then going into his rap career. During his upbringing, it was when rap and hip hop was brand new, to the point where you had to know somebody who knew somebody to even get a mixtape. It was only in New York City. And he was in Philly, and his cousin came to work for his dad. And he had the hookups and had all the mixtapes. And at the time, it was it would melt your brain because it was just so new, so interesting, and just so raw. And it got to, and to kind of give more context, he described his upbringing as a triangle. From three different authority figures in his life, where he learned who he is today. The top of it was his grandmother, who was incredibly spiritual and godly, and that's where he learned his spirituality and his trust in God. And then on the bottom two, it was school and then authority. His mom had a few masters, and back at that point in the early 70s, his mom raising, you could only imagine how tough of her education was because she was a black woman. I think it was probably 50s or 60s that she went to school. So it's just, she had this love for school, and that was, all of her children, the first children of her lineage to go to college other than herself. And then his dad was this ex-military, Philly, cursed like a sailor, that sort of thing. But, he knew how to work, built a business from the ground up to the point where he had a refrigeration company. And at first, during the beginning of his career, and I digress, but I also want to lay the foundation for the type of person that Will has become, to the point of school, not school. Sorry, I'm recovering from a cold, so I'm having to take lots of breaths.
No, you're good.
So he had a really tough time building a business because even though it was Philly, people they were in West Philadelphia, born and raised. South Philly, basically anywhere that wasn't West was very white controlled. So unless it was in West Philly, it couldn't work. However, over the course of his diligence, he was able to be the sole refrigeration company for stores, for homes, for heating, for businesses, for the whole XYZ, because he would grind it. He just wouldn't sleep. He wouldn't take a day off. So Will learned how to spiritually be led, the foundation that education is important, and then just to work, absolutely grind until you're done. And so back to hip hop, he learned how to rhyme. And so him and his buddies during class, during recess, they wouldn't go play, or they wouldn't go hang out with friends. They would his buddy would beatbox, and then he would learn any rhyme possible. Any on his free time, he would write down rhymes. That's all his books were. And so it kind of got to a point where he made GJ Jazzy Jeff, who was that version and now this version is undisputed, like the biggest, most influential DJ ever. So they got together via a party that's a story for another time, but they got their first record deal. And once Will heard that song on the radio, he came home to mom and previous, like a week previous to them getting a record deal and then, you know, getting the record on the radio, mom had like this, he describes it as like a war room where they were finding all the colleges, like she called everybody. It would be like this version's or that generation's version of like Karen, kind of. Like,
Gotcha.
Like, my son is so great. You better take him to school because he's the perfect, whatever, etc., etc. Got the right school picked out, and then when he heard the song on the radio, working at his dad's job, not even from himself, but he just heard a car going down the highway or the road or whatever it was, and he heard a song and he just like started crying and laughing, just so overwhelmed with emotions because all those countless hours of dedication like paid off. Long story short, he got a Grammy he was like, him and PJ Jazzy Jeff were the first hip hop, R&B and rap albums ever to get a Grammy. Like, full stop, done, like move on. But he goes home after he heard it on the radio and says, Mom, I'm not going to college. Like, I'm done. Like, this is my path. Of course, she didn't love that. And so he talks about how, you know, his dad sat him down, his mom and him, and even though he was cursed like a sailor, he was very good at like leadership and like understanding the value of like hard work, despite where the hard work comes from. To your point, it's like you can learn stuff from anyone. Sometimes you need to go to school, sometimes you don't. Anyway, his dad said, you have 1 year, and that's it. I said, okay, fine. Within that year, he got a Grammy, and then got hired onto, this was a little bit down the road, but then got the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and the rest is history. And now he's like one of the most well-known people in the entire world, if not ever. Like, I would venture to say he's probably more popular than Gandhi. I don't know. But probably not. I don't know.
I think those are different paths, but
right. Well, they're very similar.
Different
They
genres.
inspire me. I've never probably read any of Gandhi, actually.
Gandhi's a legend.
Don't be disrespectful.
No, I'm not saying disrespect. I just
No.
read it. I need to, I'm sure. But my point being, like, I think for me it was, I never told anybody this because I knew if I did, like, they would hold me to that standard. But like a year ago, I started doing this full time, and COVID kind of hindered that. But I said, you have a year to make this, and if you don't, like, that's it. And starting this podcast, in my head, I'm saying, okay, you have another year, and that's it. And that's where we're at. I mean, if you set goals and like those goals are somewhat achievable, then like go for it.
Yeah. No, I think a very
Within reason, right?
What was that?
Within reason.
Yeah. Well, and it's, you know, having a time frame for when you're going to get something done will actually, you know, propel you to get started on it.
Right.
Like with this book, you know, a year ago, I told myself on June 30th, and I wrote this down, on June 30th, I would produce it, I would publish it. June 30th rolled around, hadn't really started. Like I had a rough idea, but I missed that deadline. Like there was an aspect of kind of failure there. And
did that discourage you, or did that push you to do it?
I mean, it's interesting because at first it was a little discouraging, but you know, I just couldn't let the idea go. And so, you know, even though I'm 6 months late, like for me, setting that hard deadline that I missed by a mile, you know, was essentially put me in the position for the last 6 months to say, all right, well, it's not going to be as easy as like putting it together overnight. Like, you know, you might, you know, you have passions, you have talents, but like Will Smith, you know, ultimately there's a lot of work that goes in. Hours. Yeah. And it really it just has to like occupy so much of your, you know, mental energy. And I think, you know, if you were to talk to anyone who's quote unquote made it, who's been, you know, self-made, wicked successful, you know, I would venture to guess that they still have the chip on their shoulder that they haven't made it, that, there's always something more to do. And I think that is one of those just subtle and really ironic, switches to flip, for finding your own personal success and, producing value or, providing value to other people and to yourself, is to say, you know what, between now and X time frame, I'm going to give this everything that I have. And then, I think you'll be surprised at truly, how different that path unfolds, for the best. And there's so much trust that you just have to place in, something outside of yourself, whether, God, ultimately for myself, right? Of just believing, hey, you know what, this is, I'm putting it in a higher power's hands. It's really cool.
And I think that back to the point that you just said of feeling satisfied, I think that feeling of satisfaction precedes complacency.
Yeah.
When you're oh, okay, I've made it. I'm good.
Right.
Yeah.
When life is a journey of learning and growing and pursuing whatever it is, it makes me think of Alexander Hamilton, the musical.
Yeah.
There's that song in there it's called Satisfied. And it's one of the Schuyler sisters singing about how Alexander Hamilton will never be satisfied. Because I don't know if you've seen the musical or anything, or know anything about Alexander Hamilton, but his whole life was started off as an orphan, and he just built himself up from the bottom to the top and was never satisfied with where he was. There was always something that he knew that he could do.
Yeah.
To better the country, to create change, until the day he died. He was, striving, and there was never this feeling of satisfaction. And I think that's really important. I think of people that are in my parents' generation, maybe a little bit older, that, are near retirement and are okay, I'm satisfied with how hard I worked, with the life I lived, satisfied with my kids, with my grandkids. I'm just going to let life unfold.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's a beautiful stage of life to be in, but that when you're at that age, there shouldn't be complacency either.
Yeah.
Because I feel you still have so much to offer to the world.
Right.
And I also feel from talking to people in that age demographic, you get to that point and you say, okay, I can finally, breathe. And then, it's man, why didn't I do this 30 years ago?
Right.
And yeah,
You're just breathing, right?
Yeah.
After the 40-40,
The 40-40, exactly. And I hope this point connects. One of the most influential books I've ever read in my life is called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl was a psychiatrist, psychologist, and he's Jewish, and he lived in occupied Germany during World War II, was obviously thrown into internment camps, concentration camps, and, he survived, for 5 years in these concentration camps. And his book highlights or talks about that experience, an unfathomable, amount of suffering. And the book is about, essentially the theme is, how do you make meaning out of your suffering? And I think, suffering is it can be such a personal thing. And it's also, broad stroke, just, it's a very deep human emotion. And to recognize that, on any given day, you're going to have highs, wicked high highs and wicked low lows. And that, just at those low moments, just take a step back and say, how can this refine me? How can I use this to understand myself better? And then also empathize with everyone else that and don't know that, feels this similar sense of dread or suffering, whatever it be. And I think it just connects us on such a deep level to say, we all suffer in our own respective ways. And there's so much of, who we are that isn't projected and can't really be adequately expressed. It's just deeply personal to who you are, and recognize that there's an infinite worth in every person that you make eye contact with and connect with. And
the thing that really struck me when, like, just hit me kind of like a rock when you were telling that part, like, connection is so valuable. And I think whether you're on the college side, whether you're on the trade school side, whether you're on the I'm going to do it by myself, pull myself by my bootstraps, whatever side that you're on, I think the biggest mistake is, like, if I do it this way, the way that I believe, then I'm going to be happy. Like, then I can breathe. So my dad, what story that I really connect with, and a lot of my being, the decisions that I make on a day-to-day basis, I think back to this story and my family. So my dad, and this is also my kind of distrust in there's one set way to be successful, like the 40-40 or the way I'm doing it, or the way you're doing it, or the way you're doing it. It's like there's no sure way. I don't think you can project that onto someone else. The part of the Will Smith story that I didn't mention was his takeaway from that situation, or that contention with his mom was, like, just because it's someone else's truth and how they got to where they are doesn't mean it's a one-all be-all, nor should it. Because if we're truly a chessboard and everybody's doing their own thing, then if everybody's a bishop, then you can't make the moves that you need as a society, and you can't add value to other people. So my dad, very successful scholastically, has a few masters and is now a CFO of the company. And on the surface, like, wow, your dad, like, you probably live in a big house, huh? I mean, I lived in a very modest home. I saw my dad got torn down multiple times. It chokes me every time I think about it. Like, I don't think there's anyone on planet Earth, like, and obviously I'm biased, I understand that, but I think there are very few people that work as hard as he does and love as much as he does at the same time. Like, it's very hard to do both, and there's no other person that I've ever seen that does it the way he does it. And he's lost his job over 3 times, some in the course of a couple years. And a lot of those things aren't just his fault. He has this tough time of like, he hates contention in every way. He wants to make sure that everybody's loved and taken care of, and when he sees problems, he'll bring them up. But if they don't accept it, then it's like, well, I did my best, right? There was a year where and I was younger, and it could be less than a year, but he didn't work. Like, we had no job. We were off of church welfare. We went from a company car, very nice company car, to, like, maybe we'll get a car someday. And so it just went from, I made it, to I can't provide for my family. And I remember he went to our church leader and goes, like, I need to work, I need to find something. Is there anything that I can do, according to your connections? Is there anything that can I do service, meaning in exchange for a job? He felt like a failure, because again, he did the 40-40 thing, where it's like, I go to school for 40, and then I am guaranteed, right, for the rest of my life, and I'm gonna retire and it's gonna be happy. Like, long story short, not to make a long story short, I'll go back into it, but he's in his late 60s and is still working, and as far as I can tell, I don't think he's going to retire anytime soon. And that's heartbreaking to me. And our church leader told him, again, it was just a meeting with him, he and my dad, and he goes, I need you to serve. Like, that's all you need to do. Go find a service project and you go serve. You serve till you can't serve anymore. And my dad was like, this is stupid. Well, he didn't say that, but
felt it, yeah.
I need to provide for my family. What are you talking about? Like, my family, I don't know if I can get them food. I don't know if we can pay the bills. Like, we had to move out of our home. We had to downsize. We sold like 50% of the stuff that we had just to make it by. And on top of this, I was having an open heart surgery like within that year. So it was, I cannot believe. I don't know how to do it. I really don't to this day. A lot of it has to do with faith and whatever, but over the course of him serving, it was the most humbling thing that he's ever experienced, at least to my knowledge that he's told me about. And to your point of like, it's all about people's connections. And I think people misrepresent the value that they can give. Like, value in its true sense is like making people feel good and making them feel safe or happy or escapism, like whatever you have to give, like that's your value. And I think, so my main point, or my first point before I got to that story was, I think people get set in how they're going to do it, and it's like, well, from this, I'm going to give my family value because I'm going to work so hard, and I'm going to retire, and I'm going to, like, that's it, that boom, done. Where, if my dad's any examples, like, that doesn't work, especially in today's age. And so our thought has always been, especially with anything that we create, is you create something that's valuable, that helps people, and then the monetary stuff will follow. And I think people really get that backwards, and it's extremely frustrating to me, especially being in the media industry where it's like, oh, I have this amazing song, other people need to hear it.
Yeah.
Not so much, I have this message, and I feel like people need to understand what the message is. It's so backwards, and it really, if there's any biggest pet peeve of mine, it's that. Like, the hypocrisy of that. It's not even juxtaposition. It's just backwards. I don't know. It makes me really frustrated.
And I think, it comes back to, why do I do what I do, right? And,
You specifically in a general sense.
In a general sense. Yeah. Sorry, I've got some, cogs turning here trying to put some words together. But so my mom, she's stay-at-home mom for my entire life, and then around 10 years ago, just out of kind of curiosity from a friend that she had, started painting. She just picked up the brush and just out of curiosity, like, kind of fell in love with it, and also realized that she had an innate talent for it. And over the past 10 years has grown a very successful business. Julia Blake Art, little plug, love you, Mom. Yeah, if you're listening. And it's super interesting for me to talk to her process. What I've kind of realized is that, there's tangible value to the work that she produces and sells, but the intangible and deep value is that, she connects with her clients, and of course they want a beautiful painting on the wall, but they also want something that symbolizes the artist itself. Right. And, so essentially you're giving a piece of who you are, and that's the value. You can't really put a percentage or monetary figure on it, but like, it's the quote unquote goodwill or, intangible aspect of being a creator, being an artist. And as a creator, you have to, truly believe that, like, in the value of your work, as well as, truly care about the connections that you're making, that that you want, to not just like sell something or give something to other people because they need to hear it, like out of a selfish sense, but, because you can, express something so just deep and raw.
I think there's like a pacificity to it as well.
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
Like, and I think this is a perfect segue to read a quote in a minute of the book of like, something that Olivia and I talked about recently is the idea of like being passive with your life. Not so much in a sense of like, I'm careless, I don't care what happens around me, but like letting, because I guess to add more context, I'm a firm believer in the idea that we are spirits having bodily experiences and not bodies having spiritual experiences. And if that's the case, then our spirits want to do something. They want to tell us something. They want to like release whatever talents that it has innately in us. And I think art is an expression of that. I think it's a catalyst of that. I think that's what's going to set you apart as a nurse. Like you hinted at earlier, like there's a certain
Absolutely.
school that you used to go to that more intrinsically teaches the idea of like, this is the knowledge that you need to know, not so much this is the type of person that you need to be. And like, what does that mean? What I just said, it means there's a human that needs to learn the specifics of the medication and the type of conditions that people have and how to take care of. And then, I'm not like this. And then there's the spirit that's what makes someone a good nurse or a good artist or a good person. It's like, I know how this, I need to take care of this person.
That's really funny that you bring that up because I saw her Instagram reel today that was like totally mocking nurses, but I thought it, what?
Such a millennial.
I know.
Oh, I get lost in the reels all the time. Yeah,
but I was like just scrolling, you know, as you do, and I came across this one, and
Research.
yeah, it was research, and it was this nurse who walks into a patient's room, and the caption was like "new nurse," and she was like, "Hi, whatever the patient's name was, I have your medications." She was like, Sir, can you hear me? I don't have a pulse. What do I do? And she's like flipping through her badge, trying to figure out what the right code is to call and what to do. And then it like flips to the next one, which is like old nurse or experienced nurse, or however they phrased it. And it was, you know, oh no, I need to call code blue. The nurse that's the patient's nurse walks in and is like, oh, is this your patient? I already gave 2 rounds of epi. He's been defibrillated twice. And we have someone doing compressions, like super calm, like just in control of the situation. And I thought that was a funny juxtaposition of like, not just new nurse versus experienced nurse, but like maybe book smart nurse versus experienced nurse. Of like, you know, the new nurse or the new grad nurse knows the books, but maybe has little clinical experience, whereas the experienced nurse went to school 20 years ago, but has lots of clinical experience. And so like the amount of confidence and control that provides, I think is applicable across the board.
Absolutely.
And, you know, to tie it into what we were talking about in the book and everything, I think there's something really valuable in being like confident in yourself, confident in your knowledge, confident in your passion.
Absolutely.
And I think that's something that you convey very articulately in your book.
Thank you.
It's almost effortless, which is so funny because you know it's not.
Right. And like I was reading it and I told Tanner, I was like, every single word, like down to the is so purposeful. It feels purposeful.
It. Yeah, thank you.
And I'm also not like a film aficionado, and didn't really have an appreciation for it until we met. And so these pictures, I'm like, oh, these are beautiful, but some of them are kind of random to me, just like scrolling.
Shout out to Miriam, our engagement photos.
On film.
Still
yeah.
favorite photos that, you know, we've ever had.
Oh, that was an incredible day. Yeah. I still scroll through them. I'm like, man, it was
a beautiful day.
Yeah. Did I ever tell you that when, you know, I like reposted a story and I had like 3 people ask if I was engaged. Like the way that it was phrased, they thought I was getting, you know, you and I were getting married.
Yeah,
you were
that's
the photographer. And I was like, no.
You got it backwards.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Pretty funny.
Yeah. So anyways, I was scrolling through because the first 50 pages are just film photos.
Yeah.
Beautiful film photos. But to me, having no context as to what your book was about, just like scrolling was like,
that's heavy. I didn't know that. I knew that you were reading it, but I didn't know that's amazing.
Yeah.
So just scrolling, I was like, these are beautiful, but like, why?
Yeah.
You know, what's the meaning? What's the correlation? Because these go from cows in a pasture to a white picket fence in a house to a sunset to a random person. Like, why? And then I got to your paragraph and it like every single word made the pictures make more
Can I
sense.
actually ask you a question before you read that?
Absolutely.
Is there, and I don't know if this is just how the
Opa. There you go. Yeah.
Ooh, wop.
Ooh, that's it. Yeah. Ooh.
Maybe that's what we'll do on the show if we mess up.
The bloopers. Yeah. There you go.
Was it on purpose that the text is in the middle of the book, or is that just how the transcript goes?
You mean in the middle of the page, or?
Well,
It's like the second to last page in the transcript that we have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's I realized, right, that like by taking the raw photographs and the raw ideas in my brain and putting it into a tangible book and saying, I'm offering this, for a monetary value, then I lose full control over how anyone else interacts with my work.
Right.
That ultimately you as, a consumer of it, like you get to decide what it means to you.
Right.
And so the intention behind putting, essentially the written aspect of the work at the very end, was to kind of have that subtle irony or that subtle paradox of like, you observe, you view first, and then you get to, hear my thoughts and how it, at least for me, ties all together.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest mental hurdles I had with actually, getting started on this project was, if the meaning just doesn't connect, it just falls flat for anybody, whether it not like it's just my mom who, has one on her coffee table or, 100. And
I need to jump in. I just think this is really important. It doesn't matter.
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you're in service of the story, not the story's in service of you.
Yeah. And so that's the point I was getting at, is like, it finally clicked of like, I need to get this out because I know how deeply the themes of loneliness have impacted my life over the past few years, and just in the conversations that we have had and I've had with so many different friends and random people that have just come in and out of my life, that like it's a story worth being told in my own way. And so I think I decided to put it at the very end, just to give whoever's reading it or observing it the opportunity to to formulate their own feelings prior to getting to a more directed or structured analysis, if you will, of the work.
Yeah.
It just struck me. It's like your text in your book, meaning in a normal book you have a bunch of text, like that's what a book is.
Yeah.
You read it for text, right? And at the end of those books you have a dedication. Like, I dedicate this to, or this is why I wrote this book, or this was the reason behind the book, where it's like that's your thing. Like your text is your pictures and your film and your raw ability to capture stories, but you did it in 1,000 words. You didn't do it with actual words.
Yeah.
Pictures 1,000 words.
Yeah.
And then you dedicate it to, like you said, to every word beautifully said in a way that really struck us, and that, I don't know, that just clicked for me, and that gives me chills.
Dude, I appreciate it.
That's incredible, yeah. And then that's the whole reason that we want this podcast, is to like sit back, like take a second.
Yeah.
Like, just because this is your worldview, whatever this thing is, you have a brigand that comes along and says, no, I want to write a book with photos. Like, this is what I've been doing since 2018. Like, done.
Yeah.
This is how I'm doing it. Or you have a kid with heart disease. It's like, well, I want to start a podcast and I want to play with cameras for a living. Or you have a nurse. It's like, well, I'm going to go to this school. That didn't work out. Well, I guess I'm just going to go to this other school that just like fell in your lap. And now you get to work taking care of people way sooner than most people in the medical field, and you get to do it in your own way. And I'm starting to believe that the takeaway from the podcast is like, and I would be open. Just because it's someone else's truth doesn't mean it's your truth.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in like the millennial Gen Z sense of like your truth is your truth. More like what works for you can work for other people, but it doesn't have to be in their way. It can be in your interpretation or your pacificity, listening to your spirit before you listen to your head.
Yeah. And I'll just add to that. Like, I think, it's just clicked for me right now that like, there's a lot of, doubt that surrounds chasing your dream or like, getting rejected from a school. There's a lot of rejection.
We were told recently, you read this book about, an artist that we really like.
Opa.
Not Bossy. Who?
Russ.
I said Opa. Yeah. Oopla. There we go.
It was by Russ.
Uwap.
That's it.
Yeah, I think if that's okay, I
Yeah.
really want to say that that interaction that you had, where you suggested the book to someone, and kind of the idea behind the book.
Yeah.
It was very short. It was very short, sweet.
Yeah, it was like I listened to the book. It was like 2 hours maybe.
Who was it again?
Russ. Yeah. And pretty much his whole thing
Russ?
was.
No.
He's like a hip hop artist.
Oh, word.
He's a Middle Eastern.
I don't know what ethnicity he is, but I'm sure you've
Russ
heard
is a
one of
dope
his
name,
songs.
though.
But
Yeah.
Well,
And-
shout out Russ.
Shout out.
but the whole book is pretty much about how he manifested his success as an artist.
Love it.
And, the years and years that he spent making music in his basement that nobody heard but his couple friends or whatever. Like that whole time he was manifesting his success. And now, he has tons and tons of albums out. Everybody but Brigham knows who he is.
My bad, Russ. Yeah.
I'm sure you'd recognize his music
No.
if you heard a song.
Yeah.
But I was talking to somebody and it was a multi-generational conversation, and the person that I was suggesting this book to was of my generation. And I was like, I read this book that I think you'd really enjoy. It's about manifesting your success and choosing what you want to do because it's what you love and then making it work for you.
And in context, this person is one of the most musically talented people that I've ever met.
Unreal.
Like, can listen to a song and then play it in 20 minutes.
Dang. Yeah. Just, stream of conscious, right?
It's frustrating.
Right. But I think the cool thing.
Well, yeah. I mean, really quick. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was suggesting this book and of like, if you believe that you can do it, like, do it. And you can. Like, your pure will is enough to get you wherever you want to go.
Yeah.
I'm sure they were. His, her, it,
Yes.
they.
It was more just like a cool, like, yeah,
I
I vibe with that. I like that. And then someone of a generation above me pretty much said like, well, sometimes that's just not how it works.
Like, that's 1 in a million.
Yeah. Like that worked for Russ, but like, who's to say that's going to work for you? And I was like, I got kind of defensive and was like, it doesn't just have to work for Russ, like, or, whoever.
Yeah.
It worked for them because they were the 1 in a million that had the drive to keep going. And they you don't have to be the 1 in a million to have that drive to keep going.
Yeah.
Like, you just have to have a passion and it can take you as long as you work hard and put in the work. And I got really miffed and just kind of dropped it.
Well, and to my dad's story, he failed. He was 1 in a million in the inverse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's going to be so many different obstacles and, just crap that impedes you in the way that you thought you were going to succeed.
Yeah.
And to back to the,
Yes.
this thought, I love, that's a great point. Cause it's, the disparity, the difference between, someone who, embraced that and said, I vibe with that. I can see how if I believe wholeheartedly that it'll work out, that beyond my wildest dreams versus, oh, you're, you're not
Who's a
one in a
dreamer?
million.
Yeah.
Like be realistic. And one of my realizations is that like I just want to be a cheerleader for anybody that like believes in themselves, right? And like I think
that could be for anything.
And like you were saying in terms of whether or not it's my truth or like that there's you kind of not in the like kind of postmodern sense of like everyone has their own truth, but like that if it makes sense to you and it is objectively like making you a better person and making those around you better, dude, like I just want to give you a friggin' hug and like, like help out however I can. Right.
Yeah.
And, just to like spread positivity, like, cause if you kind of look at things, you take like the whole, glass half full, glass half empty analogy. I'm always going to, try to tell myself and remind myself of the positive, to flip something in that, could be rejection, could be whatever it is, and say like, how can I flip the switch here and see the positivity and the benefit, even though it's different from what I thought. It's cool.
I've had people tell me, when they hear what Tanner does and they hear what I do, if Tanner's thing, fails and he can't make it, at least you have your career to fall back on.
Yeah.
Because mine's like the structured
There's
9 to 5 nurse is always going to have a job. And that always rubs me the wrong way. Like, nursing is my passion. I'm not doing it because it's stable. I'm not doing it because it like has benefits and insurance and a steady income and whatever. Like, I'm doing it because I love it.
Yeah.
I could be paid $5 an hour and I would still do it. And I think it's the same for him. Neither of us are in it for.
It's not like you're waiting every 2 weeks for,
Right. It's not like, I'm just doing this to get the next paycheck so I can survive. It's like.
And people have suggested to me, like, you should do this job, you should do that job. I think you'd be good at this type of school, and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And it's like, I could do that, but I'm going to lose part of myself. Like, it's not worth it to me.
Yeah.
Especially if, like, with my history with my health, I'm a lot more stable than I was in the past, but I had to ask questions that nobody else asks themselves.
Yeah.
Well, I should say.
But the majority of people don't ask.
Sure. Am I going to live past 25? And if I am,
Censored.
I'll just say it. Like, fuck school. Like, I'm gonna do me.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm gonna be happy, and I'm gonna find someone that understands that. And, like, if you don't believe that I'm doing what I want to do, that's fine. But this is what makes me happy. And quite frankly, I'm just so tired of it. Like, I am creating this podcast with some of my dearest friends and my wife to change other people's lives. Like, I'm so glad that you do taxes and you're a part of a financial firm and makes 7 figures a year, but what are you doing to help someone else? Are you helping your family? Great.
Or even, are you happy?
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
did you lose yourself? Absolutely. I can't make a blanket statement. However, the people that I've met that are in that, I mean, even if my family is listening to this point, like, I'm grateful that you're here, but, like, I'm just going to say how it is. Like, I don't know who my brothers are anymore. I used to. I thought I did. And, like, now, like my brother, my middle brother, who I was really, really, really close with, like, he was my best friend. He's 15 years older than I would, but it's like, it gets to the point where we had rooms adjacent to each other, and I would jump into his bed early in the morning because he would go to school during the middle of the week and then come home for the weekends. I would jump into his bed and we'd have like tickle fights. Like, that was the relationship that I had. And I understand that part of that has to do with like age and like getting older or younger. But I have, like, ever since he moved away and got into a career that I don't like, I think he likes it. I think he's very good at it. But I don't think he's happy, right? And I think if you're not happy and you're in it for the money, you lose a part of yourself. Well, it's one of two things, in my opinion. Either you lose a part of yourself, or you look forward to retiring. And it's like if it's one of those, and I'm sure there's other variables, but if it's one of those two things, like that's gonna be really depressing. Like if the only thing that makes you happy is your family, or you like what you do, you might not love it. Like you really do feel that you lose a part of yourself. And I really had to ask those hard questions in really dark places of my life. Because I knew I wasn't a good videographer at the time. However, it's something that I really loved. And it's led me to this point. It's led me to you guys, right? I remember, this is one of my favorite memories of 2021, other than our marriage. It's like pretty close to it, though.
Okay. It's the burrito story, I swear.
What's that?
I said if it's the burrito story.
It is the burrito story. And this camera.
Look at that thing.
I was really nervous to move from California to Utah, but it's where you were and that's where I need to go. You laughing because you remember?
It's coming back. I think.
Yes, it's
yeah.
coming back. And I remember I was getting measurements for my room because we used to be roommates. For those that don't know, that's how we met. That's how all three of us met. Well,
North Cormac. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah, Cormac Place. Shout out to Lord Tanner. If you know who that is, I will literally pay you $10. And Tanner wasn't there, the landlord, so I called him Lord Tanner, because I was, cameraman Tanner. And Brigham was there, sent you a text, and said, hey, could I stop by and get some measurements? And you were there with me. Yeah, you were.
No,
I wasn't there. Jake was with you.
Yeah.
Shout out Jake Hawkins, hippie living in the van.
Legend.
We did it on here one time. We should do a podcast in his van.
Oh, that's a lock. Absolutely. Yeah. Jake, we're coming for you.
Lifestyle van.
Yeah.
Anyway, I come in, and there's Brigham with a fat film camera and a equally fat Chipotle
burrito.
And I think to myself, okay, everything's gonna be just fine. And like to bring it kind of full circle, like that made us happy. Like there was a mutual understanding there that was like, all right, this person understands art because they're going out of their way to have a film camera, and then Chipotle was just kind of an added benefit to that. But I don't know, man. Like, I feel like I'm digressing in this topic, but
well, let me digress a little bit further. I don't want to embarrass you too much, but do you remember how you sat down on the chair, and after about 10 minutes, the leg snapped off?
Yeah, that was perfect.
And you're freaking out. You're like, oh crap! I just, I'm moving in, and I just broke a chair. Oh yeah. But that's when I knew. I was like, all right, yeah, this guy. The chair was bunked to begin with. It was not you.
It was my luck.
Yeah, it was like, this is, we gotta laugh at this.
Yeah.
It was
I don't
unreal.
remember, was I like nervous when I broke it, or was I like,
you were a little nervous. Yeah. And then I should have just given you the rest of my Chipotle burrito. So
I would have.
Yeah.
I probably would have
Double steak, man.
It, though, if I'm being honest. It would have been like a perfect night. Break a chair and choke on a burrito. That would be a good story. Maybe I shouldn't break it up.
Hey,
what was in the burrito?
Dude, I mean, when I'm ripping Chipotle,
I know what was in that burrito.
And that specific. Well, I mean, I'm a man of consistency here. So every time I go to Chipotle, it's either double chicken, double steak, no rice, black beans.
No rice?
No. Yeah, call me crazy, but I don't think rice has any place in a burrito.
All right, that's fair.
But I digress.
I don't know if that's fair.
Okay.
I think he's entitled to his own opinion.
No, but hear me out.
I'm trying. Say your word again. Double chicken, double meat.
Yeah.
Double steak.
Rice, extra beans.
Yeah, I mean just normal black beans, pico, and then guac.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's
That's a macro heavy burrito.
Oh, I'm stuffed to the gills after that. Yeah, I don't have to eat for like 3 days. But I just feel like the rice gets in the way. I don't know.
Rice
I feel like rice is a very bland flavor, and so I could see why you would want just rich flavors.
Yeah, I don't know. That's how my mom made burritos growing up. So
it's more indoctrinated in you.
I'm dogmatic. Dogmatic burritos.
Here's a question: Mexican rice or like lime rice?
Lime.
Is it on the side or in a burrito?
It could be either.
On the side.
I like the
lime.
zest. Yeah. The zest to it.
I tried to make zesty a thing, like a saying, like that's dope. Oh yeah, that's zesty.
It kind of makes me uncomfortable.
What?
It kind of makes me uncomfortable.
Ooh, zesty. Yeah.
There are two things food wise, when I knew Olivia was the one, and it's very selfish. Like it has to do with me. When she knew my Chipotle order, and then when she knew my In-N-Out order.
Okay.
That's when I knew that was. Like,
what's his In-N-Out order?
I know she knows the In-N-Out one. I don't know if you can remember my Chipotle because it's been a minute.
Well, I can tell the In-N-Out one at least.
Yeah, easily. I'll try it. The In-N-Out's gonna be easy.
Double animal style, no lettuce, no tomato, no pickles at Chili's with cheesy fries and a pink lemonade.
Done. Say less. I want some.
Sounds like perfection.
Yeah. I mean, I don't screw with the lettuce. I mean, I get the idea of like the veggies and it might like add this crispiness, but like if you're going in and out, like just go salty. Like I like
get that sodium.
Yeah, I mean,
rip
you're
it.
already there. Like you don't need this delivery system to make sure that you have more salty. Just I'm telling you for anybody that's listening, if you're not a big fan of In-N-Out or like it's overhyped, skip the lettuce and then come back to me.
But make sure you add chilies too, for the
that's
zest.
my thing, but it's definitely spicier.
Yeah.
Like you definitely feel the spice.
Man,
Did you
dude,
try that?
oh yeah. I mean, I've not that exact order, but like anytime I get a double, I will throw chilies on it.
Okay.
Yeah, animal style.
Yeah.
But I'm a texture guy, I guess. I don't know when it comes to food, so lettuce always has a place for me. That sounds weird, but maybe it makes sense. Hey, let's let bygones be bygones here. I'll be the texture guy. Wow. Yeah. Unreal. Yeah, that was. I don't know how we got to.
What's my Chipotle?
Are we going quesadilla or burrito? Because you very often get quesadillas, and I know that you would get a steak quesadilla. What?
Quesadillas got me through my mission, my guys.
Oh, that's facts.
Wifey's.
And our fam. Hey,
Fam?
Hey, fam.
It was, and I understand for all those people that serve like out of the country, like you two, like mine was, very cushy. But I got through my weeks. Like I don't even want to talk about it. It's like I'm gonna say it, and you guys are gonna say, "Well, I ate a raw egg," or "I ate balut," or
Balut, yeah. No, but
I
it's.
ate a donkey, like. Meanwhile, and then Rayleigh's getting. If you don't know Rayleigh's, it's a grocery store. Back in California, I'm at Rayleigh's getting turkey and cheese quesadilla, and that was.
We've really just.
Oh yeah.
What?
We're very digressed right now.
Listen.
Yeah. No, it's
really
stream of conscious.
Burrito?
Yeah.
Are you going for the macros or for the taste?
Post-gym workout.
Post-gym
I
workout.
guess that's redundant.
Post-gym meal.
What?
Post-gym.
You're right.
Yeah.
I feel like I more
Fuel.
know your Costa Vida burrito than I would know your Chipotle burrito.
Just like, moving to Utah made me so soft because Costa is so much closer.
Yeah.
Because, like, I grew up on Chipotle. Shout out Craig Keller for.
My guy. Yeah.
My guy. You introduced me to that. Freaking California.
Okay, my guess would be double chicken.
Mm-hmm.
Do they do refried beans at Chipotle?
Yep.
Okay, refried beans.
But they do pinto beans.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beans.
So pinto beans.
I shouldn't be nodding. You just need to be saying.
Corn. You like the corn?
Whoa.
Pico
That's
and hot salsa.
Yeah.
Cheese.
What I do with the salsa?
Pico and hot salsa.
And corn.
And corn.
Yeah.
And cheese.
It's
Dude, that's poetic.
And
yeah.
the white rice.
Yeah.
A little bit.
I don't care. Like if my calories are like lower that day,
Yeah.
I'll make sure to do white.
The white
Gotcha.
rice.
Yeah.
Pumping it up a little bit.
The combination of the white rice, the corn, and the sour cream makes this like such an amazing combination.
Dude, I'm going to Chipotle tomorrow. Yeah, there we go. Unreal.
You know, I'm there.
All right. Yeah.
Don't worry about to. He hasn't had Chipotle yet.
What?
You're not giving him Chipotle. He does not need human food.
Where'd that guy go?
He's passed out in his bed.
Oh, what an absolute legend.
He really is.
Yeah.
That's rough. I think we need to get a conversation about that in a different podcast.
Yeah. The dog
It's
has
crazy,
a whole
you know.
life story and he's only 3 months old.
Twice.
Dude, I mean,
Definitely the most expensive thing that I own. By far.
Yeah.
We own. Well, even if we split it, it's still the most expensive.
but for a guy that was, a dog that was sick for what, a week and a half, you were telling me? Like,
Yeah.
literal 2 weeks.
Yeah. Like really, really
deathbed.
sick for a week and a half.
Yeah, I mean, that guy is a ball of energy now.
Yeah.
Like,
You would
to
have
bounce
never known.
back.
We call it chew meter. How well
It's chew meter?
by chewing.
Oh, yeah, the fact that he almost took my finger off is
Well, the
pretty
fact
good
that I have
indication.
like
Yeah.
scars on my hands from him.
Like,
1,
just so the viewers know,
2, 3.
he's not a bad dog.
4.
He's a puppy, right?
Right.
Oh, he's just,
He's a puppy that likes to nibble, like all
like-
puppies do.
He's like the little dinosaurs in Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm talking about?
Except way cuter.
Except
Right.
way
Yeah.
cuter
Well,
and way
arguable.
fluffier.
Arguable.
Yeah.
True.
You
We have
can't-
different definitions of cute then.
Yeah, that's fair.
I remember seeing that, my dad was watching that scene of Jurassic Park when I was like
Yeah.
4.
Were you
Scarred me.
watching from like the hallway?
Yeah, I was supposed to be asleep and I was like, poke my head around. I saw this
I have an experience with
dino.
What is it? Star Wars 3, Rise of the Sith, or
Revenge of the Sith.
And I just remember that was like my first one, like a PG-13 movie. And we were up in Tahoe, and it just come out on DVD, and my brothers were watching it. And I think I was like 6 or earlier at the time. And there's this scene where Anakin's like cutting the head off of General Grievous, and like that's the scene that I saw.
Yeah.
Like in the beginning.
It was Palpatine though, right? Yeah.
Well, no, Palpatine was like, "Get," and then Anakin
Yeah.
executed it in literal terms. And I like confessed earlier because I was such a goody two shoes when I was younger. It's like I watched the movie, and my brothers were like, "What part did you watch?" And I was like, "The lightsaber one." Like,
Yeah,
trying not
yeah.
to say what it was, but man, traumatized me. Like, still to that day, I had like a visceral experience. with lightsaber. So yeah,
Incredible. The things that stick with you. That's the weird childhood trauma.
Mine was
as we
a
say.
Grey's Anatomy scene.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
it's very different.
Oh, the only context I had was the chief of surgery's wife went into the bathroom and passed out and fell and hit her head and was bleeding on the bathroom floor.
Oh, wow.
But the only part that I saw was a lady on the floor bleeding out
Oh, geez.
of a public bathroom. That was the only part that I saw. I didn't like see the context. Now that I'm older, I've like watched Grey's Anatomy and I've
Yeah.
seen the whole episode. But that I could not go in a public bathroom alone
Wow.
for like
yeah.
years.
But absolutely.
Without
How old
thinking
were you?
about that.
Do you know?
Probably like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad it was like, that sounds terrible. I'm glad it was like a bloody scene versus a different type of scene that you see in Grey's Anatomy all the time.
That's fair.
Yeah.
True.
And then-
True. But
and different
shared
type of bloody.
shared experiences. It's there's everyone watches one movie, sees one scene when they're a little kid that
Yeah.
it scars them. So yeah,
Man.
All right, should we come full circle?
bring
I
it
don't know
back.
how we segue from that.
Hmm?
You got a segue? Ooh,
Well, ooh up, but no, I think it's it's just bringing it back and connection, right?
There's
Like
2 sentences that I want to read from this.
yeah, and before
Yes.
we read, like as as tangential as like talking about childhood movies is like it is a shared experience. Like we all like it. I like you as a person become so much more vibrant when you talk about things that like are weird or silly, right? Like and it's just it's you can't be like serious all the time, and we are not definitely and it's just keep things light. Yeah, I don't know how we got there, but here we are back full circle.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool.
I love my family's the same, and it's kind of cross experiences where it's like life gets lifey sometimes.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
I can go through like best which quote an author. It's kind of a lesser known author. It's the best times. It was the worst times. Life gets lifey.
That's the epitome of a Tannerism right there. Life gets lifey. I love it's always good to hear that.
Yeah, and then it's definitely something I live by because like just roll with the punches. Like be passive in a sense of
Going with the flow of life.
yeah. I mean, you can only swim up river or upstream so much before you lose part of yourself. And I'm just so done swimming up river. And I think everyone at the table is done swimming up river. And for anybody listening, like if you're swimming up river, I would highly recommend to take a step back and to have some silence.
Yeah.
and to really question, are you doing what you love? And if not, maybe reevaluate. Not to say quit what you're doing, I'm not saying that, but take a step back and like start understanding what makes me happy. And I promise, and you guys can, I'm sure, can either object or attest to this, where it's like, if you find what's valuable to others and serve that, it will give back to you tenfold. And I just know that to be true. It might take a little bit, but at least you're doing what you love and you're helping other people, and that's what we need.
Yeah. I think too is like to take the analogy a step further. It's like, you know, if you need to hop out of the river and sit on the bank and just breathe for a little while, that's like that is absolutely, I endorse that 2 thumbs up.
Well, I mean, you don't know, like, maybe you're not going down the stream, to your point that you're getting at. It's like, you don't know where the stream's taking you.
Yeah.
You don't know where that pacifist is leading you. So yeah.
And on that same vein, you take a seat on the side of the bank and you don't know who's going to be sitting next to you.
That's a good point.
Who's got a tent right behind you, you know? Like,
Right.
You never know at what stage of your life you're going to meet that person that's going to make all the difference.
And it's looking back in retrospect, it's, you know, incredible that we met like just under a year ago, 6 months.
No,
it was like
March.
February, March. Yeah. But that, like, I was thinking about this driving over here. It's like, you know, you would never know when your life could change. And to just be like, just deeply grateful, and like, for who comes into your path and for who makes you a better person and inspires you to be a better nurse, to be a better student, to be a better videographer, a better human being. Like, be that cheerleader, and like, just, you know.
People on the side of the bank, the 3 of us, are very different chess pieces on the chessboard. But to your point, like, you never know where your life is going to take you. In this case, the people on the side of the bank, me moving up, me going down river and getting off, was me moving to Utah.
Yeah.
For you, it's not getting to the school that you thought you were going to. For you, I mean, what, from your perspective, what was you getting on the bank?
Dude, there's been several. I think I'm gonna have to come back to that. I don't know if we could pick that up on another podcast. I'll like really have to think about that one. That's because it's a great question.
And I mean, even I'm sure there are many banks and many lessons, but to kind of bring the podcast full circle, and this has been an amazing conversation, and I'm so excited for more of these to bring value, and ultimately you guys that are listening, if you have value, in a sense of you want to bring other people value, please message us. We would love to have you out here.
Amen. Yeah, absolutely.
Because, you know, you might be going downstream or swimming upstream and not knowing where you want to go. And maybe what you need is someone else also on the bank. And this podcast will always be here on the bank trying to figure out how do we help other people, because we're in service of the story.
In service of the story, I love that.
In service of the chessboard, and we're just going to always try to help people out.
Yeah.
100%. We're not in it for us.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah. I think that ties really well into the couple sentences that I want to read. We're not going to give away the whole thing because we need to entice people to come check out your book. But
appreciate it.
We know we said this at the top of the podcast. However, or we will say this at the top of the podcast, but please check the link below. Brigham is going to be on here a lot. And he might be a host when Olivia and I can't be here, or vice versa.
Be a good fill in, jump in and
not even like
integral.
Fill in, just like an addition.
Yeah.
Extension.
Right.
Yeah.
And so please check out. I think anytime that you're on the podcast, we'll make sure that book's in the description, because people need to see this.
Appreciate it, man.
Really profound.
Appreciate it.
So this is near the bottom of your profound page, and it says, the ultimate frontier of exploration is that of oneself as it relates to others in the world under their feet. Despite the broad stroke negative sentiments associated with loneliness, I believe that there is something inherently human to our desire for connection, while simultaneously striving to carve out a sense of individuality. So
thank you guys for watching.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right.
Yeah, it's been fun.
A wrap.